Thumbs up. Good afternoon. Morning, everyone. Those that are here, those that might be watching live stream or the recording afterwards. This is a special meeting. The purpose is to hold our annual public hearing on the proposed budget for 2024. So there'll be public comment within the hearing itself. We ask that be directed towards the budget materials. The budget materials. See, it does work if I talk into it. Alrighty, so I'll just start over. A special meeting today. The purpose is to review and hold a public hearing on the proposed budget for 2024. There'll be an opportunity for public comment on the budget during the hearing portion of the meeting. This isn't the absolute final version. We'll be considering the actual appropriations and adoption of the budget in December. So after input today and discussion, there's a few decisions to make today regarding providing property tax relief in regard to lowering of mills and potentially opening some positions that are going to be open next year for hiring now. Some vehicle decisions to be made. I think overall what was provided to us was really good, solid product. So with that, I guess it is 9:02. We'll open the meeting, and Amanda, could you call the roll?
Commissioner Richardson.
I am here.
Commissioner Thayer.
Here.
Commissioner Schroeder.
Here.
All right. So first item we have is the actual approval of the agenda before us. I'd accept a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. The agenda is adopted. There are only two items. One action item, which is the public hearing for the draft budget for 2024, and adjournment. So really only one thing to do today. So,
Mr. Chairman, I move we open the public hearing for the Elbert County 2024 draft budget.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to open public hearing for the 2024 draft budget. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Tiffany, would you care to present us the 2024 budget?
Good morning, Commissioners. Tiffany Hermes, Finance Manager. So today I'm going to present where the rough draft budget is for the 2024 year. The purpose of this meeting is to provide citizens an overview of the draft 2024 budget for public comment and receive BOCC guidance regarding required adjustments. And the agenda is the budget overview, our current financial picture, the key assumptions, significant changes proposed, key changes adopted, proposed budget by fund, proposed general fund budget by department, anticipated fund balances, and the mill levy adjustment tax relief proposal. So we'll discuss some of those options. The budget overview. The county uses fund accounting on a modified accrual basis. The key funds include, so we have the general fund, road and bridge, human services, and the retirement funds that are primarily funded through mills, and that's taxpayer. And then we have the fund, public health fund, which is mostly grant funded. And then we have grant fund, obviously this is grants. Law enforcement, which is through tickets. Sales and use is 1%. And then capital improvement is typically funded by the transfer from the general fund. This is a picture of where we currently are for 2023 projections. We are projecting to have an increase in revenue. Our expenditures are currently down, but we are expecting to review for end of year expenses. And we will be using a portion of our fund balances overall to help supplement the year. Our 2022 audit is complete, and we did receive a clean opinion. Our net position continues to increase over the years. And our annual recurring obligations are just right around $3 million, and we do have interest-bearing accounts around $24 million.
Thank you. Actually, before you go on, I know, Grant, you've been living this a little longer than I have, but could you talk a little bit about where the county was financially and to get to where we are now?
Yeah, I've lived in the county for over 30 years. I got to learn how to participate. Yeah, I've lived in the county for over 30 years, and there's been ups and downs during that period. But just prior to Chris and I being elected, I'm going back into the 2007, 8, 9, and even when we first got elected, the economy hadn't come all the way back. One of the bits of good, and I remember talking to the then sheriff and how they were unable to pay their bills for their jail in the final quarter of the year, and how they went through different periods where the food supplier said, "I'm done with you," so they'd have to find a new one. Be that as it may, as we've moved forward, the economy has recovered. And one of the things, and this is Chris and I, and Danny Wilcox at the time, is that we stipulated that as we did the budgets, we had to have detail in the budgets so that we knew what we would be approving. But more importantly, we learned, we've had to figure out where we had some flexibility. And we incorporated those concepts into our budgeting process. And each of the years, and I've been here 7 years now, that we've become more sophisticated in our budgeting. And Tiffany, by golly, she's doing a good job. And we sincerely appreciate that. And the other thing is like last year is a good example of this, is we chose not to spend about $8 or $9 million in public works because we wanted to save that money going forward to next year so that we could do some paving projects. So where I'm going with this is budgeting isn't just about this year, it's about thinking forward. And by doing that, I think that overall the county is in much better shape. The other thing is that we incorporated in some of our planning going back then, where when certain triggers were met in subdivisions, then roads would be paved or roads would be upgraded or things. And a good example of that, 3 years ago now, that 174, 178, and 13 were all paved. And that was because that subdivision at that time hit triggers. And by triggers, I mean certain levels of development, certain traffic requirements, all of these different things are incorporated into future planning. The budget now, and we've got to give our staff credit for putting it together, I've recognized our prior decisions, and we're budgeting for the future.
No, I recognize that as well, and even though I'm new to this seat, I've been around the county for this is my 10th budget cycle, and when I first was in the clerk and recorder's office, it was tight your belt time. There just was no excess anywhere, and it was a very difficult time. And so I applaud these two guys to my right when they came in and really taken the financial condition of the county seriously. Of course, the economy did rebound, but now the plans are in place so that if we do have another downturn, we won't have that difficult period like we had before that was just real tough on everybody. So I concur with what Commissioner Thayer said. Planning for the future is very important.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt, but I just wanted to kind of stress that we are in such a different position than we were 7 years ago or 17 years ago. And the fact that we are in a position now where we saw home valuations spike, the monies that have been set aside for not only emergencies will also give us the ability to provide some substantial and meaningful tax relief to our citizens. management of those funds. We got quite a bit on this slide, over almost 24 million in interest-bearing investments at the moment. And though the interest rates are painful when you're buying things, we're actually accruing quite a bit in interest as investment interest rates go up as well. So, thanks. I won't hijack your presentation anymore. You can go back in, or for now.
Right? Okay, so moving on. Some of the assumptions that we had for revenue impact is that HH or SB 23303 will fail. As of right now, we are seeing that did go our assumption. The state will provide some backfill for SB 2022-238. Our sales and use collections are steady. State funding of social services continues, and grant funding to public health, OEM, and the SO continues as well. Expenditure impacts, inflation will continue at a current about 3.2% annual rate. Salary increases that will include some COLA and performance of 5%. Health insurance buy downs to match increases in rates, and property and casualty rates will increase about 20%. These were the changes that were proposed at the beginning of the budget cycle from some of the various departments. The assessor's office had requested a full-time FTE in a vehicle. The sheriff's office had requested to unfreeze 4 vacant full-time positions, adding 12 new deputies, and purchasing 10 new patrol vehicles. The clerk and recorder's office did get a grant to change their system to a cloud-based, and they added 1 full-time employee for the DMV department. Human Resources is wanting to replace their sick bank with a funded long and short-term liability insurance. We did have a request for new departments, our county engineer, we do currently have, and a GIS department. And we were looking at property tax relief for the citizens, adjusting our mills to reflect about a $2 million savings in 2024 to them. These are the current changes that we have gone ahead and put into the budget. The assessor's office did receive their full-time employee and a new vehicle to help them when they are out in the county. The sheriff's office, we are unfreezing their 4 vacant full-time positions. 3 of those will be funded from their LEAF fund, and 1 will be from the general fund. We will purchase the 5 new patrol vehicles, and we'll discuss adding additional positions. The clerk and recorder's office, they did go ahead and get that grant for their cloud-based system, and they are adding 1 full-time employee. Human Resources did go ahead and fund the long-term and short-term liability insurance. We have increased the individual and family buy-down for medical, and we have increased the cafeteria benefit for those that waive. And we are going to increase our life insurance for employees from $10,000 to $50,000. We did fill the county engineer position, and we are going to contract the GIS department another year. And again, we will discuss more of the mills at the end of this slide and reducing those. Here's a current look at the personnel authorizations we have for each of the departments. You'll see some of the changes from 2023 is that IT may be insourced, and we have 4 positions in there. The clerk and recorder, DMV, 1 FTE, assessor, 1 FTE. The SO patrol, the 4 unfrozen. The health has added an OEM position that is fully funded by a grant. The engineer. The building department, we have also added a FTE to help support our public. And the OEM has added an additional, as well as human services, a FTE for their admin support. And of course, the majority of the costs for our budgets are for our personnel. Here is just a quick comparison of our 2023 to 2024 budget by fund. You will see that there are some increases. Those large increases are in road and bridge and the sales and use. And that is due to those projects that we did not plan in 2023 and we're going to do in 2024. which is paving of County Road 166 and Singing Hills Road. You'll see that capital improvement had a decrease. We are not doing the transfer this year. We have completed a lot of the projects that were listed in the study in 2018, and so we are finally balancing that out. And the Conservation Trust, we are going to be finishing up some projects on the fairgrounds to help with drainage and such. Here's just a quick overview of some graphical comparison for 23 and 24 budgets, just to kind of show you.
I know you had it on the previous slide, but it's very clear. The general fund is the bulk of the spending in the county and the focus, and I appreciate you, Sean, and all the department heads and offices for really keeping your budgets as neutral as you could. So a 2.92, so under 3% increase year over year for the largest spending fund, I think is just really shows the effort that went into doing things as economically as possible within the county. So thank you.
Here's the information by department. You'll see that we've cut the non-departmental by quite a bit. We've been able to identify those specific costs associated with departments and place them in the correct departments. Human resources, we have an increase for some external support possibly. Clerk and recorder, we did have that FTE added. Elections is quite a bit higher in 2024. It's a presidential year, and so the number of elections we have to host is higher. You'll see that facilities is obviously plateauing because we have been able to get our facilities to a place where the upkeep is much simpler. On this page, you will see the sheriff's office is, we've moved those positions to the LEAF fund, which has helped the general fund section of theirs. In 212 sheriff's detentions, we have a slight increase that is due to them being fully staffed and the salary increases that we were able to provide. The building department, again, has an increase due to the FTE that we've provided them to help the public. And as well as the economic development, we are seeing a higher there. The director of that is also over planning, building, and economic development, and so that position is being paid out of the economic development budget. And then we have filled in the manager position as well. The one department on this page I'd like to note is the county fair. We are capturing the full costs of our fair now instead of separating those out between the different departments. So you'll see the full cost of that department there. Overall, we have an increase of 2.92% in the general fund. This is due to additional FTEs in economic development, assessor, in the building department. Additional district attorney costs associated with the transition to the 23rd district. Patrol deputy positions, we shifted 3 of those from the general fund to the LEAF fund. And then of course the detentions increased was based on market survey and the 5% COLA in performance. And we have additional HR and attorney costs associated with the SO collective bargaining. Here's just a quick overview of the different departments within the general fund from your 2023 to 2024. You'll note that the 10, which is our 000, has gone down due to us costing them in the appropriate places. Our IT department has gone up. We are going to be bringing those in source.
That's 17.
17, I'm sorry. 60 is kind of leveling out, showing that we have gotten our facilities where they should be. The majority, obviously, is our 210, 211, which is our sheriff's office. And then 285 is our planning department. Here is an overview of the budget by fund for your 2024 revenues and expenditures. Again, you'll see road and bridge in the sales and use having the highest discrepancy due to the projects that have been put off and we will be completing in 2024. Here is a quick overview of the fund balances projected for 2023 and what possibly may be used in 2024. Again, the two that are highest are road and bridge and the sales and use. I would like to note that of the general fund fund balance, that 9.9 of that is unrestricted, that we have the ability to use to help with that tax relief.
Zero usage of the general fund is anticipated, but
Right.
what you're presenting today, I think you had said there's in the neighborhood of 400,000 unexpended based on anticipated revenues.
Correct.
Okay, so that's kind of our wiggle room for
For the mill levy adjustments.
mill levy adjustments, additional deputies.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Which will bring us to our next slide with the proposed mill levy adjustments. You have your current mills where they are at this time. What we're proposing, and we are proposing dropping all of those mills except in the retirement, increasing the retirement fund to help supplement that fund for growth and stability. Reduction in county property tax collection of about 11.2%. Which we would reduce revenue collections by $2 million, and fully funds retirement increases due to salary adjustments and FTE increases.
I believe that the Senate Bill 238 reduction and backfill is approximately another 6 to 8%, I think,
Yes.
benefit to our taxpayers. So overall, that would equate to about
Almost
half the increase that was anticipated for the county
Yes.
elections. Again, we don't control what the other elected bodies do with their mills.
Right. So in here you will see, obviously when we're putting this together, we weren't sure how Prop HH was going to go. But on the left column is where we currently are budgeting, which is fully mills, the full mills and Proposition HH not passing. And you'll see there about the fifth line down, the state backfill. And they are doing about 90%, which is roughly 816,000, which would bring our total county revenue to about 19.4. And we have the possibilities, obviously, off to the right, if we adjust some of those mills, and we will request guidance from the BOCC as to how those mills will be reduced in the distribution. Questions, comments?
Yeah. Do either of you have questions for Tiffany at this point? Or? Okay, thank you.
Just real quick, Tiffany, with the sick bank being retired for the insurance, do those hours just go away for the people that had donated to those, and it's just gone, or is there going to be some type of?
I know that HR had discussed possibly leaving the sick bank available for new hires that may not have acquired a lot of sick or vacation time to help supplement them. So we're still working on the fine tuning of what that will look like in the future. It just would not be available to employees who've been here for longevity, because they would have that option of the short and the long-term disability.
Okay. And I know that that's been utilized with a great benefit. So I think that's great to be able to keep it for the new employees to have that opportunity. We want people to be able to do what they need to do.
Yes.
When the time comes. So I do appreciate that. That's it for now.
Thank you. I guess at this point I'd open for public comment if there is any. Amanda, had anybody indicated they wanted to call in?
No.
All righty. So with that, would close public comment, and I guess I'll ask Tiffany back up, just so we have somebody to talk to while we discuss, I guess. Just as we were going through the issues that I think are open to us at this point was, like I said, approximately 400,000 general fund dollars unallocated. And against that, I have heard, wasn't in the presentation, a discussion with the county manager, allocating 100,000 of that for new software fielding within the building department and planning.
Yes, that is correct.
I think that, if you guys are good with that, I think that should be added to the budget. We had talked in the, I know it's a departure from how we've done business in the last few years, but kind of a little bit back to where we were several years ago with the funding of deputies, several deputies within the LEAF fund, and then when we have deputy vacancies, carrying them in the LEAF fund allows us to, because generally we do have vacancies that allows us the authorization, the ability to hire and pay, but if we have vacancies, that vacancy money accumulates in LEAF for rotation of vehicles. But I believe if the numbers that you discussed when we were talking the other day, that we could bring in 2 more deputy positions above the 4 unfrozen would be about 200,000.
Would roughly be about 200,000, yes.
Good with that. Sheriff would bring in your 4 unfrozen and 2 new on work for you? I know it's... That would work. Okay. And we can continue to look throughout the year, I guess, as we see what revenues do arrive as well. So I know the ask of, I think unfreezing those 4 now makes sense. It's going to take time to hire, train. If you had 6 people show up on 1 January, I don't know the capacity to have 6 people trained to go out on the road is probably. That would be a little hard to do. Okay. Yeah, so with this year's funding, unfreezing those 4 now work? Okay. And then allocating the 2 additional to the general fund. I believe the increase that was presented, I'm not sure if we built in the 20,000 or the increased insurance yet.
That was not built in just yet.
Okay, so please, let's add that for the increase in life insurance. And that would leave approximately 80,000 unallocated that we can either forego in terms of property tax relief or during the discussions over the next month or as we refine projections for costs. That's probably a safe amount to leave. Okay, unallocated. Okay, so that kind of takes care of funding what we're doing. I guess if we could roll back to the one slide that showed property tax relief. You're doing triple duty, I know.
Well, we're getting there. Another question here. With putting the full cost of the fare, showing the expenses accurately there, I assume that helps to offset on the expected revenue side as well, so it's not
Correct.
showing as a huge detriment there.
The fair does bring in some revenue, not enough to fully cover, but it does help offset that, almost 50%.
Yeah, because like I know in past years, it's both sides have been very minimal, and then
They have, yes.
just kind of playing with it as it goes, but making it more accurate, I think, is the
Yes, and the revenue has been increasing as well.
All right. So the property tax relief, so from the previous slide, there's about 9.9 million general fund dollars that have been that are outside of what's been restricted for contingency, our stability fund, Tabor Reserve, other ongoing obligations. So that's truly, it's a blessing at this moment, I think. And it was, again, through a lot of hard work to build up that amount. And as much as I'd love to say we should never hold a penny that we don't have a absolute programmed use for, we know it took almost a decade to build this up. We know property taxes are high this year. It's the following year, the values will be unchanged, and then the year after that is assessment. So we've got to really be looking at providing some relief over at least a 2-year period before the reset, and then the legislature can always do things that help, and the legislature can always do things that hurt. So year 3 is really an unknown. I mean, we can say that the market value may stay steady, the market value may drop, it might recover and go up again, but in the interim, we've seen that the legislature is very apt to adjust things, to do things that pull levers in our communities. So I don't think it's wise to spend everything we have. We had asked you to look at a $2 million reduction, and I think this slide pretty much evenly allocates that reduction across
It does, yes.
Road and Bridge, General Fund, Human Services. I guess there's 2 things at this point to discuss. Is $2 million a number that we are comfortable with? I think there may be room to go to 2.5. And then how do we want to distribute that? We've seen that Road and Bridge will be very heavily using their fund balances. So we may not want to take them down as low as 8.7, especially when we have the healthy fund balances within the general fund. And then I'm not sure, Sean, if you've had, or you, Tiffany, have had discussions with Darcy on, they don't get a lot of money out of that 1.5 mils, and so a 1/3 reduction certainly will impact their fund balance usage, but I think we probably, before we go into our final budget adoption, need to kind of discuss exactly where we set the mills and look at the fund balances and those other impacted areas and see whether we want to push those as deeply as we can with the general fund. So I don't think at this point I think the amount of reduction is really what we should be focused on here, not where we take it from. Sure. We've got a month to work on.
I think the 2 million is the right number, and increasing that, although I'd like to do it, I'm very concerned about the economy as we go forward. There's too much uncertainty out there to overreact.
I would just encourage between now and the actual approval of the budget that all the department heads and elected, you guys really work closely together to see where we're going to be at the end of the year for those projections. Because while we're talking about a $2 million relief here, the actual impact to the budget could be less than that if we have excess funds by the end of the year. And so having that real clear picture of where we're going to look at the end of the year going forward will certainly help make that decision, make it clearer, I think.
So I think, sounds like, would we all be comfortable saying a minimum of 2 million reduction at this point to our taxpayers? And then we'll look at as we get closer to the end of year projections, if we truly are at that 16% underspent, and again, that's across all funds.
That is, yes.
So I know some of that underspending is road and bridge projects that have been pushed to another year. So, and then I think when we're making that final decision, though, the 3 of us will be involved in setting the budget for 25. We're not doing that this year, but whether we're looking at projecting an equivalent usage for next year, or if we try to kind of stair step up with half or another fraction of the relief we're going to give this coming year into the following year. And I think that needs to be probably informed by what we think the legislature may do and what the market is doing at that time. So, alrighty. So, any other questions or things you think we need to delve into at this point?
Is there any open items that we need to be thinking about between now and when you put together the formal budget?
So one other thing to keep in mind is we will be receiving some FEMA funding for all of the flooding that we went through this summer. We do not have a date as to when we will receive that, but it will be between...
Or a year?
Right, but it will be between that $3 and $3.5 million range.
That's good to keep in mind. I guess so with that, just to kind of sum up where we're at today, we will support a budget that gives at least $2 million in direct it'll be a temporary mill reduction that we renew on an annual basis. Either we'll get the right language, whether it's a rebate to or a temporary reduction. There's a lot of different phrases that fall around, but that's mostly tied to the specificity of what can be done under Tabor that truly is not a permanent change that then requires voter approval afterwards. So a minimum of $2 million in reduction. We'll need to revisit how that's distributed amongst the three primary mills that fund our operations. And then we're opening the the 4 frozen deputy positions now. We'll add 2 additional deputies come 1 January. And then I would say, Tim, depending on the hiring process and where you're at, if we need to open those 2 more, if it seems feasible to open them at the very end of the year before we get into January with your training ability or the recruiting, we can talk about where we're at with usage. And then life insurance, add the 20,000 in life insurance, and then there's always things we didn't consider. So we've got about 80,000 that would bring us into essentially complete balance with expenditures equaling revenues. So, what you guys heard? Okay. I do appreciate, the amount of work that goes into this each year, from the department level on up to the finance department, the county manager, all the electeds. It kind of sits behind the scenes for 6 months out of every year. Well, at the same time we're building a budget for next year, we're still trying to execute the budget for this year. During the first half of the year, we're also auditing the previous year. So budget never stops, and I know Tiffany lives in the world of 3 years at a time simultaneously, and I really couldn't be more pleased with where we're at financially as a county. Our ability to fund operations, it's never enough. I know the first bids from all the departments came in about $1.5 million higher than we would have to spend. And it's not because people just want to buy new shiny stuff. It's because they want to provide a better level of service to our citizens. So, and then working together to find a way to get into balance is always an interesting dance. And it seems, I think at the end of the, you could say there's winners and losers, but I think at the end of the day, really, they're all generally wins. Some of the things we get to fund a little early, some has to be pushed back, but I think it's a really good process. And thank you for being a key, absolutely key to that. And Sean, I think as you're kind of wrapping up your first year as county manager, this is probably the smoothest to get to this point that I've seen. Yes, and I'm seeing a lot of nods, so thank you for that. And certainly not in the room, but Dolores in HR has had a huge just a huge difference to have somebody with her depth of experience that's taking care of our employees, that take care of our citizens, and what she's been able to recommend. Just the fact that we're going into the end of this year right now with the exception of activating those positions. I think we're only three or four positions down in the county, and I think well over 20 have been filled this year. So not only are we almost full now, but it's the employees that actually provide the services to our citizens. So actually having our structure filled with people that are working versus, vacancy savings that built up our almost $10 million of fund balance is nice, but that reflects people that weren't here working for the citizens largely. So just, we're in a really good place, and I appreciate it. Anything from you guys? Okay, with that, the last item we had on the agenda was to adjourn, so I would accept a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion we adjourn for the day.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are you sure you want to adjourn? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you very much for coming out today.
Yes, good work.